If you've been walking the path of the dark, chosen those of us who were never meant to conform, who carry ancient codes in our bones and a fire in our shadow, then you already know this truth. Your journey will never be easy. And it was never meant to be. Not because you are cursed, but because you are being carved. And one of the most brutal, mysterious ways God sharpens us is through people. Not angels, not mentors, not heroes, but toxic mirrors sent directly into our lives to test the very essence of our becoming.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
You see, chosen ones, especially the dark chosen, are not tested in temples. We are tested in relationships, in betrayal, in manipulation. In the quiet moments when someone looks you in the eye pretending to love you while secretly envying your light, your power, your destiny. Let me make this clear. The toxic people in your life were not random. They were assignments. Divine setups, spiritual traps so precise that only someone as powerful as you could understand their design. And in this video, I'm going to reveal the 7 types of toxic people that God sends to every dark chosen one. Not to break you, but to break open the part of you that still clings to illusion. These people are spiritual pressure points. They are necessary evils. They hold the keys to unlocking your next level, but only if you survive them with clarity. The first toxic person is what I call the imitator. This is the one who comes into your life pretending to be just like you. They mirror your energy. They copy your values. They speak your language. For a moment, you believe you found a soul twin. But slowly, their mask slips. You realize they're not mirroring your soul, they're harvesting your frequency. They want your essence, not your friendship. And here's the real test. Will you shrink your light to stay liked by someone who's feeding off of you? The imitator serves one purpose: to teach you energetic boundaries, to teach you the difference between resonance and replication. You must learn to recognize when someone is reflecting you and when they're consuming you. The imitator forces you to protect your codes, your frequency, your unique fire. It's not flattery, it's theft. And if you don't guard your soul, you'll be drained before you ever realize what's happening. Have you ever asked yourself, how many people are around me for my essence and not my energy? The second toxic figure is the underminer. This is the one who pretends to support you, but only as long as you don't surpass them. As long as you stay small. As long as your power remains digestible. They'll cheer for you in public and compete with you in private. They'll give you advice that sounds helpful, but is designed to delay your growth. They'll tell you you're too much, too fast, too intense. But the reality is they feel threatened by your destiny. They sense the storm inside you, and their mission is to make you doubt it. The underminer is sent to test your inner compass. Will you keep dimming your brilliance so others feel comfortable? Or will you finally realize that your evolution is not a democracy? You don't need permission to rise. And if your light offends them, so be it. You weren't sent here to be liked. You were sent here to lead. The third toxic person is the victim manipulator. This one is tricky, because on the surface they seem harmless. broken, in need of help. They play the helpless role so well, you feel guilty for having boundaries. You feel like if you say no, you're abandoning them. But underneath the surface, their victimhood is a weapon. They use guilt and obligation to keep you emotionally handcuffed. Chosen ones are natural healers. We attract the broken. But here's the divine test. Will you sacrifice your healing to fix someone who doesn't want to be whole? The victim manipulator teaches you spiritual discernment. Just because someone is in pain doesn't mean they're your assignment. Just because someone is broken doesn't mean you're their healer. You must learn to recognize when your empathy is being exploited, when your compassion is being converted into control. The fourth toxic person is the silent saboteur. This one never attacks directly. No betrayal, no explosion, just subtle, constant erosion. Doubt disguised as concern, delay disguised as patience, criticism disguised as advice. They smile when you fall, but they cry when you rise. They're the friend who never celebrates your wins too loudly, the partner who grows distant every time you level up. This one hurts the most because they usually come as someone you trust deeply, and yet they are quietly poisoning your momentum. Not because they hate you, but because your evolution reminds them of their stagnation. But here's the divine test. Will you protect your peace, even if it means losing people you love? The silent saboteur exists to teach you emotional sovereignty, to stop needing others to clap for your growth, to stop outsourcing your confidence. You must learn to rise in silence, to glow without applause, to trust your inner expansion more than outer validation. And now I ask you a question that may shake your soul. What if the people slowing you down are the ones you've been fighting to keep in your life? Let that sink in, because the fifth toxic figure is the spiritual narcissist. This one is dangerous. They come cloaked in wisdom. They speak like gurus. They quote sacred texts. They appear woke, conscious, healed. But underneath it all, they are addicted to being superior. They use spirituality as a weapon, as a mask, as a hierarchy. They don't teach, they dominate. They don't guide, they gaslight. If you question them, you're not ready. If you disagree, you're unevolved. It's not enlightenment, it's ego in disguise. The spiritual narcissist is sent to test your spiritual independence. Can you hear God without a middleman? Can you trust your own downloads, even when they contradict the experts? Can you walk your path without needing approval from those who claim to be above you? Because here's the truth, no one is above you. And anyone who claims to be has already fallen. These 5 types are just the beginning. Each one is a spiritual initiation, a gate, a mirror. And if you fail to recognize them, they will drain you, delay you, and distort your destiny. But if you see them clearly, they will become the very pressure that turns your soul into a blade. Let me remind you, God is not just testing your patience. God is testing your perception. Can you spot the serpent in the garden? Can you see the lesson inside the betrayal? Can you recognize that the most toxic people in your life were actually teachers wearing masks? This path is not for the faint of heart. But you didn't come here to be soft. You came here to reclaim your power. And in the next part, we will go even deeper. We will uncover the final 2 toxic archetypes that only the most powerful dark chosen will encounter. These are the ones that don't just test your boundaries, they test your soul contract. They attempt to rewrite your identity. The final 2 are not just people. They are spiritual viruses sent to either awaken you or erase you. The soul hijackers, the final 2 toxic archetypes that attempt to rewrite your destiny. There are certain people who show up in your life not just to test your energy or challenge your emotions, but to try and reprogram your identity. These are not ordinary tests. These are soul-level confrontations. They carry codes that target the deepest parts of who you are and attempt to overwrite them. And if you're not grounded in who you've become, if your self-awareness is shaky, if your inner throne is still empty, they can succeed in making you forget your divine assignment. These are the final 2 toxic archetypes God sends to test every dark chosen one. And they don't come early in your journey. No, they arrive only when you're on the brink of expansion. When you're about to unlock a new version of yourself, when your light becomes too potent for the matrix to ignore. The 6th toxic archetype is the identity inverter. They don't attack your actions, they attack your essence. They don't just project, they invert. They take your greatest strengths and twist them into perceived flaws. Your honesty becomes rudeness. Your independence becomes selfishness. Your discernment becomes judgment. They gaslight you not with obvious manipulation, but with subtle reframing. And the most dangerous part, they make you start to question your own nature. You begin to wonder, maybe I am too intense. Maybe I do need to tone it down. Maybe my power is actually a problem. But here's the truth. This person is not here to bring balance. They are here to bring confusion. They are an agent of distortion sent to blur the lines between your shadow and your light until you no longer know which one is which. And that is the divine test. Will you let someone else rewrite your story? Or will you reclaim the pen even when your hands are trembling? The identity inverter teaches you brutal spiritual clarity. They force you to define yourself on your own terms, not through the eyes of others, not through old versions of self, but through the raw blueprint of your spirit. You must learn to separate feedback from control, to differentiate between healthy accountability and energetic inversion. Not all criticism is truth. Some of it is projection wrapped in spiritual language. If you don't anchor yourself in your soul's truth, you will be rewritten by someone else's script, and that's how chosen ones become lost ones. The 7th and final toxic archetype is the false twin flame. This is the most complex, most emotionally devastating test of all. Because this person doesn't just walk into your life, they ignite it. They awaken parts of you that were asleep for lifetimes. You feel seen in ways you've never felt before. The connection is transcendent, magnetic, cosmic, and yet underneath that intensity is a core of chaos. The deep connection becomes a deep addiction. The highs are otherworldly, but the lows are soul-shattering. This is not a relationship, it's a spiritual entanglement. And the test is this: can you tell the difference between activation and alignment? Just because someone awakens you doesn't mean they're meant to walk with you. Just because the energy is powerful doesn't mean the union is sacred. The false twin flame is not your reward, they are your refiner. They are sent to burn away every illusion you still carry about love, worthiness, and inner wholeness. They mirror back to you the places where you still seek validation outside yourself. They trigger wounds you thought you healed. They expose your attachment to fantasy. But here's the secret: the real gift of the false twin isn't the love story, it's the collapse of the illusion that someone else will complete you. You realize that you are not here to be completed. You are here to remember that you were never broken. The moment you walk away from the false twin, not out of bitterness, but from clarity, is the moment you step into your full sovereignty. That is when the soul contract ends. That is when the spell breaks. That is when you reclaim the pieces of yourself that were scattered across lifetimes. These final two archetypes are not just people. They are portals. They either initiate you into your highest self, or they pull you into an identity that was never yours to carry. And the choice is always yours. God doesn't send these tests to punish you. God sends them because your next level requires a version of you that cannot be manipulated, cannot be seduced, cannot be rewritten. These people are the fire, and you are the metal being forged. You either become sharper or you melt. And if you're listening to this right now, I already know what you're made of. You didn't come this far to be undone by someone else's projections. You came to ascend through them. You're not here to be a victim of these tests. You're here to transcend them and teach others how to do the same. How to spiritually outsmart every toxic test without becoming bitter or broken. Now we stand at the threshold of the final chamber. You've seen the architecture of divine testing. You've faced the mirrors, the manipulators, the saboteurs, the false flames, the inverters of identity. And now, the real question emerges: not why did this happen to me, but what will I become because of it? Because let's be honest, some of these tests nearly killed parts of us. They didn't just hurt our feelings, they shook our foundations. And yet, here you are. Not broken, rebuilt, not bitter, sharper, not jaded, awake. And that's the final level of the spiritual game, learning to outsmart these toxic tests without losing your softness, your compassion, your divine empathy. You can evolve in power without becoming cold. You can protect your energy without closing your heart. You can walk away from poison without becoming poison. But how? First, we must understand that every toxic person is a reflection of an unhealed contract within us. They are never random. They are precise. They show up carrying the exact frequency that matches a lesson our soul has been avoiding. The imitator only enters when we haven't fully validated our uniqueness. The underminer only thrives when we still seek external reassurance. The false flame only burns when we still believe we are incomplete. These people are not just tests, they're teachers. And when we stop reacting to them and start decoding them, we gain spiritual mastery. To outsmart these tests, we must operate from energetic neutrality. That means we don't get seduced by flattery, nor do we get shattered by criticism. We recognize projection as projection. We see manipulation for what it is, an attempt to hijack our energy. But we don't need to fight it, because fighting still gives it power. The dark chosen one learns to respond with stillness, not ego. We let the spell fall apart on its own. We don't need to swing our sword every time someone throws a stone. Sometimes the most potent defense is non-engagement. Not because we're weak, but because we've outgrown the battlefield. But here's where it gets deeper. You must learn spiritual detachment without spiritual arrogance. Just because you've recognized someone as a test doesn't mean you're superior. It means you're being invited to elevate. That's it. The moment you start walking around with ego about your awakening, you become the very test someone else must transcend. Stay humble, stay sharp, stay clear. Your spiritual maturity is not measured by how many people you cut off. It's measured by how peacefully you can walk away without needing revenge, without needing closure, without needing to prove your worth. And now comes the final practice, the most sacred of all, transmutation. This is where you take every betrayal and turn it into wisdom, every manipulation and turn it into discernment, every heartbreak and turn it into deeper self-love. The real spiritual flex isn't avoiding toxic people, it's letting them polish your soul without letting them poison your heart. Can you take what they gave you and build an altar with it? Can you take the ashes and write scripture with them? Can you take the pain and alchemize it into prophecy? Because here's the cosmic truth. Every toxic person you survived was a prophecy in disguise. They were the living shadows of your own transformation. And their mission was not to destroy you, it was to reveal you. Every time you chose to rise instead of collapse, you rewrote the outcome of your soul contract. Every time you chose clarity over chaos, you moved closer to the throne prepared for you. Every time you chose your path over their projection, you stepped further into your divine timeline. You were never losing. You were refining. So now, I ask you one final question. And don't answer it with your mouth, answer it with your integration. What will you do with everything they taught you? Because the choice is yours. You can let it make you bitter, or you can let it make you brilliant. You can let it make you guarded, or you can let it make you godlike. You can let it make you fearful, or you can let it make you formidable. You are the dark chosen. You were forged in shadows that would have crushed a lesser soul. You were initiated through pain that could have turned you to stone, but you turned it into sight. And now, you don't just survive the tests, you transcend them. You don't just avoid the toxic, you repurpose it. You don't just protect your light, you command your shadow. You are not here to be untouched by darkness. You are here to walk through it and turn it into truth. And as you rise now, more sovereign, more clear, more powerful than ever, do not forget this. God did not send those people to destroy you. God sent them to reveal the version of you that no one could manipulate, seduce, or silence. And now that you've met that version, never let it go. The unseen blessing. why your enemies were the midwives of your awakening. Now that you've walked through the fire, now that you've faced each archetype and felt their weight press against your soul like invisible hands trying to reshape your destiny, it's time to see beyond the pain, to look back not with resentment, but with reverence. Because what if I told you something that might shake every narrative you've held about your suffering? What if I told you that your enemies were never the obstacle, they were the initiation? That the very people who tried to destroy you were unknowingly midwives, helping birth the most powerful version of you, even if it meant tearing you apart in the process. That's the unseen blessing most chosen ones miss. We get so caught up in surviving the storm, we don't realize the storm was scripture. Every betrayal, every manipulation, every false bond was God's way of chiseling your soul into a shape that could carry power without corruption. So many of us spend years asking, why did they do this to me? But the deeper question, the real question is, what did this awaken in me that comfort never could? You see, comfort rarely grows us. It soothes, yes, it nurtures, but it doesn't forge. Fire forges, and toxic people are spiritual fire. They burn away the illusions we cling to. They destroy the masks we wear to fit in. They pull the rug out from under the false self until what's left is raw, real, and untouchable. That's what destiny demands. And chosen ones, especially the dark chosen, are not born through praise. We are constructed through pressure. We are not handed our crowns. We bleed for them. And that blood is sacred. It's the ink that writes our divine authority. But none of this means you must stay soft toward the people who hurt you. Forgiveness is not the same as access. Healing doesn't mean reunion. You can bless someone from afar. You can honor their role in your story without ever letting them back into your sacred circle. That's part of the power you gain in the aftermath. You learn to differentiate between closure and clarity. Closure is emotional. Clarity is spiritual. And when you rise in clarity, you no longer need validation or apologies. You no longer need to prove your side of the story. You realize that your peace is not dependent on justice, it's built on discernment. The more you awaken, the less you argue. Because you understand, some people were not meant to understand you. They were only meant to trigger your becoming. And here's the most radical truth of all. You needed them. Yes, you did. You needed the betrayal to unlock your boundaries. You needed the gaslighting to awaken your intuition. You needed the false flame to remember your wholeness. You needed each test, not because you deserved pain, but because your soul requested growth. Do you understand the magnitude of that? Your higher self before this lifetime chose these tests as gateways. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. And when you see it that way, your entire narrative changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of toxic people and start seeing yourself as a witness to your own awakening. You stop asking for justice and start walking in sovereignty. So now, let me ask you a final, soul-piercing question. Can you bless the people who broke you not because they were right, but because they were used? Used by the divine as sacred pawns in your transformation? Can you walk forward, not bitter, but battle-tested? Not naive, but unshakable. Because that's what this was all about. Not pain, not punishment, preparation. You were never just surviving toxic people, you were being taught how to become immune to manipulation. You were being shown what you are not, so you could remember what you are. And now that you've seen it, really seen it, you can't go back. You've outgrown the old you. You've burned the script they tried to write for you. And from this point forward, you walk as one who has earned their shadow crown.